Hi, I'm Calista.
And I'm Allison, and welcome back to I Don't Want to Talk About Politics, podcast where we discuss the issues we don't want to talk about around the Thanksgiving dinner table. Well, welcome back. Last episode was so much fun. Um, Special thanks to Mariah again. I got so much joy out of editing the last episode. I have about 10 minutes of bonus footage of just Mariah going off some random tangents, and they're really funny, and I probably am gonna make a little bonus episode out of them because cute and she was very charming.
Yes, Mariah is special sometimes. I just got back from YWLS this weekend, so Young Women's Leadership Summit, which was so much fun. It was amazing. I actually think I might like it better than America Fest, but America Fest is great also. YWLS, if I could say the mouthful of letters, the speakers' speeches are more tailored. No, 3, 2, 1. More relatable than most of the ones at AmFest, just because they're targeted directly to women at YWLS. Versus the speeches being like a broad conversation. I was like trying to think how I was going to like talk about YWLS. I was like, how do I want to like refer to the speeches or whatever? So I decided to go like the common themes of the speeches were. There's lots of transgender themes because, well, that's a current big issue. And then like taking women's places in sports and in awards, which we discussed that on one of our past episodes, which I almost forgot that episode exists.
That is our first.
It was our first episode.
Stop their art speech. Riley Gaines stopped their speech being like, Allison loves you.
No, I did not.
Mm-hmm.
What else was common themes? Like finding your identity in God, and then family and careers, like how you can have a career and a family, or if like your calling is just to be a mom, you can do that as well. Let's see. My top 3 favorite speakers were Riley Gaines, obviously, Candace Owens, and Benny Johnson.
I love Benny Johnson. I got to see him speak at the Western Regional Conference, and he was like, all the other speeches were like a little bit boring, but Benny Johnson, literally his entire speech was just him going through the current memes of the moment, because that's when they'd like shipped all the immigrants off to like all the illegal aliens off to Martha's Vineyard, and it was so funny.
Yeah, so this time he did like the top 5 things he was going to teach his girls, so he wanted to like practice on all of us. Which I'm so mad because I cannot remember what number 3 was, which is really annoying. But and then a bonus one, Yanomi Parks. I might have said her first name wrong. But her speech literally had me in tears because she talked about her escape from North Korea.
I saw that.
And like her journey like to the States and like going through college. Like she went to Cornell, I think. And like she had teachers that were all pro socialism, and she's like, I escaped that. You don't want to go to that. That's not what you want. And like I was like, it's hard being any regular college student and just being like, no, like socialism's not what we want, or when these teachers are like pushing certain ideas on us. But like when you've actually lived through it, I can't imagine that. Like that would be so hard, like when they're teaching you that socialism is a good thing. But overall, YWLS was amazing. But all great things have to come to an end.
You looked so cute this entire weekend, all the pictures. You looked so cute, especially that like orange and yellow dress. I was like, I'd never seen that dress before. I was like, Calista, you literally look so cute in that dress.
Orange and yellow dress.
No, it looked orange and yellow. The one I commented on.
That's a pink dress, but okay.
I need to order some
My
new
pink lace one?
this is ordering. I need to order some new glasses.
I was like, I wore a pink dress, I wore a blue dress, and I wore a tank top. Like a cream tank top. And I was so confused where you got your other color from. Because it doesn't exist. But no, it's pink. Anyways. I almost died Sunday. I was supposed to fly out of Dallas at 6:25. Then they delayed it to like 7:46. Then they pushed it back to like 6:40. So that was a mess. And then I almost didn't make it through security because the person in front of me had something in his bag he wasn't supposed to have. So they had to shut down the security checkpoint I was at. But they had already sent one of my bags through and they were trying to get me to move to another like station. And I was like, one of my bags is already in the machine. Like, I literally can't leave my bag. You yell at everyone for leaving their bags unattended, yet you're trying to make me move. So I was like annoyed. And then I did somehow get through the airport twice with pepper spray in my bag that I was unaware of, but that's besides the point. So clearly, this person had something worse than pepper spray in their bag.
Calista?
I really thought my pepper spray was in the center console of my car.
Mm.
And it was in my pocket with my pens, and I had put pens in my pocket the other day. And I, like, didn't even notice it.
Mm.
And then I was, like, digging for something in my pen pocket one night at the hotel, and I pull out my pepper spray, and we all are like, how did I get through security with that?
Yeah.
And then I got through it twice with it. Probably because the person in front of me had something worse than pepper spray.
I didn't know what they had.
I want to know too.
Because I got in trouble for cookie mix. Back y'all's Valentine's Day gifts, I got like drug tested for cookie mix. Like they were like wiping it down swab thing.
Yeah. The guy on my way there, it was like 4 a.m. He questioned my trail mix, and then he like digged through it. It was a bag of completely full of snacks, and it like set the trigger off or whatever. And he's like digging through it, and he goes, I think this is just snacks. You're good to go.
You think? Isn't that something you should know before you send someone on their way?
I was like, okay, like, thank you. I am well aware that it is only snacks in that bag, but also maybe you should fully check. That is your job.
I'm surprised he didn't like just reach his hand and just like start eating some.
But it was 4 a.m, so I was okay with him sending me on the way.
Mm-hmm.
But let's see. Then after they didn't make me move the machine because I literally was like, my bag is right there. I had to sprint across the airport to catch my flight. Like, they were already boarding. Or they were already completed boarding. So I like sprint up 3 flights of stairs all the way across the airport. Because, of course, the gate that I had to be in couldn't be the gate that was right next to the stairs. It had to be the one on the opposite end of the airport. But after sprinting, we left the gate, like right after. And we get to the runway part. And they're like, we come to a stop, like a complete stop. And they're like, yeah, there's 3 planes in front of us. We can't take off. And at this point, the pilot was like, I don't know why there's 3 planes in front of us. And then the control tower told them that there was 3 planes in front of them because there was a storm coming into Denver. And I was like, that doesn't even add up. Like, no way 4 flights are flying to Denver at the same time. And then he kept going, I don't know why. And then at some point he goes, yeah, so I was just told we're rerouting to Denver. I don't know what that means. I was like, am I gonna make it? And then we sat on the runway for 2 hours. It's like 93 out with like 59% humidity. I'm in the middle seat between two larger people. I'm like dying because I had just sprinted across the airport. I'm like melting. I didn't have time to stop and fill my water bottle, so I have no water. And then they finally, about halfway through the 2 hours, they brought around waters to everyone. So I'm like holding the ice to my head, trying to cool myself down. And they had shut the plane off because they were trying not to have to go back to the gate. So then only the air vents were working only on like half power. And finally, the flight attendants told the pilot, they're like, we're gonna have to turn the plane on because it is so hot in here. And then we ended up having to go back to the gate after 2 hours to refuel. And then we finally left 3 hours later. Luckily, I didn't. 3 hours later.
After you refueled?
No.
Oh, 3 hours in total. I was like, you left 5 hours you sat on that plane? Okay.
No. An hour.
Mm-hmm.
And then, luckily, I made it. I caught my connecting flight because I was supposed to have like an almost 3-hour layover in Denver, but the route that they gave us was shorter than the original route. So that saved me from missing my flight. And then because of the layover, I just did it on the plane instead of in the airport. But like my phone died through this whole thing. I literally got to the Denver airport and they weren't boarding my plane yet. I sat down, charged my phone. I got it to 5%. It was my turn to board, my phone wouldn't go up in brightness, so he had to look up me by my ID to see if I was actually on the flight. But I got $200 in credit from them, so
yay.
for sitting on the runway for 2 hours. Mariah goes, or Grace, I think it was Grace. Grace goes, I'll sit on a runway for 2 hours if that means I get paid $100 an hour.
Coming home from school, I almost took the flight opportunity to get credit to move to a different flight.
Yeah.
I'm just going to do it next time. Like, why not?
Exactly.
Not that much of an inconvenience to me, although you could use that $200 and come visit me.
Technically, I have $300 total because I still have $100 from Christmas break, too. But despite all my travel issues, it was really fun. Oh, but I have a funny story.
Mm-hmm.
So we were making videos to thank the donors because I went on a scholarship. So it was 100% paid for. And they were like, okay, say your name, thank the person the scholarship person, and then like say something about Turning Point and all this and like your experience with YWLS so far. And I said, hi, I'm Calista, like I say to start the podcast, so then I confused myself because I was waiting for you to respond. And you didn't respond. Amanda realized what I did because she's like, you paused. I've told her. She was like, oh my gosh. I was like, whoops. But yeah. So I was waiting for you to respond.
Sometimes I think that I'm supposed to start because for Jordan Nines, I start.
Yeah, no, I totally was like, hi, I'm Calista, and then I was waiting for your response, and I was very disappointed when there was no response.
It's so sad.
I was like, I have to do this on my own?
Now you'll know what it's like when you eventually kick me off the podcast.
Yeah. Okay.
I had essentially nothing happen this week. My boyfriend got a kitten. His name is Max. He's very cute. He scratched up my hand. And yeah, also I was invited. I wear this as a badge of honor. I was invited to my boyfriend's grandma's 80th birthday party this Saturday. And I feel like I've accomplished everything that I needed to. I personally, it wasn't by him, it was a personal invite from her. I've reached like enlightenment. Like this is peak life for me.
Okay, so Tucker Carlson is under fire again. He started his new Twitter show after leaving Fox News. Fox News is not so happy about this. They claim it is a violation of his contract. Fox News demands he stops his show, but he said he will not be silenced by anyone. I honestly thought when I first saw this article that it was for some reason Twitter that was trying to stop his show. And I was like, what happened to like the free speech space they claim to be? I mean, they won't let What is a Woman on there. They let it for 24 hours, but that's it. So like technically it's not 100% free speech. But because that one was claimed hate speech.
Hmm.
I was like, okay.
But hate speech is protected under free speech.
Yeah, I don't know. I was like, okay. So that was everything about Tucker Carlson.
Illinois became the first state to basically effectively ban book bans. Democrats in Illinois have become the first to push through anti-book ban legislation that would punish libraries for partisan restrictions. On Monday, Governor J.B. Pritzker signed into law, which signed it into law, and the legislation would go into effect January 2024, and it revokes state funding from libraries that restrict or ban materials because of the partisan or doctrinal disapproval. It requires public libraries receiving state funding to adopt the American Library Association's Library Bill of Rights, which calls on libraries to challenge censorship and says material should not be excluded because of origin, background, or views of those contributing to their creation.
Mm-hmm.
Legislation was spearheaded by the newly elected Secretary of State, Alex, I can't pronounce her last name, who told the Chicago Tribune that radical attacks on our libraries have divided our communities, and our librarians have been harassed and threatened and intimidated for their jobs. And so they provide some background on this. And they said that this amid a rise in book banning, particularly books centered around the LGBTQ plus topics or civil rights issues. Maybe if this is for a reason. In public
Maybe
schools,
if they're pornographic.
mhm. In public schools, book bans increased by 28% in the first half of the 2022/2023 school year, according to a report from PEN America, which called the efforts a relentless crusade to constrict children's freedom to read. So it lists Genderqueer, a memoir, the 1619 Project, and The Handmaid's Tale, the graphic novel. Whoa, what school is having The Handmaid's Tale, the graphic novel?
I don't know.
You know what happens on The Handmaid's Tale?
Uh-huh.
I'm sorry, I've never heard of
But the queer one, that literally is a pornographic book.
yeah, it depicts some, yeah. It says that more than 2,500 books were challenged in book bans in 2022, according to a report from the American Library Association. That represents the highest number since organizations began collecting this data 20 years ago.
So what about when they like tried to ban books like Animal Farm in 1984 and stuff like that?
Mockingbird.
Yeah, exactly.
of Mice and Men.
Fahrenheit Fahrenheit 451. Like, are those books now protected?
Okay, so Representative Blaine Wilhor, who's a Southern Illinois Republican, voted against the bill, and he argued that the recent efforts to remove books from shelves have been mischaracterized by Democrats, echoing sentiment shared by conservatives nationwide about inappropriate content. It's never been about banning the books. It's been always about age appropriate, especially when we're taking public's tax dollars on stuff. So this went into law. Like they said, it's signed into law. So I guess now your child can read Gender Queer, a memoir. But I guess it also, like, I mean, it's nice that it protects books from being banned, like, of Mice and Men, 1984, all those types of stuff. But, like, now your child can read the
But
hand.
are they going to turn it against and be like, well, actually, that's
Yeah.
not what we meant when we just meant the books that we wanted to not be banned.
I don't know. I guess also, I mean, it's a public library.
Yeah.
I, I don't know.
I guess the ones that I have the biggest issue is when they literally put them in the school libraries,
Yeah.
especially the schools that made just full on displays featuring like gender queer, or whatever that book is, Lawn Boy, and there's like two or three other ones that are really bad that they literally just made a display out of front and center for your kids to just like walk in and pick it. Because obviously, as a child, you're gonna walk into a library, you're gonna grab the first book you see.
I don't know how I feel about this.
Yeah, I don't know, because I think it's just like the biggest thing is like because they clearly like stated that it's like these books are the reason we're doing it. I think that's where my issue is because it's like, okay, well, you're specifically doing that. And like
Mhm.
I understand that like with like our freedom of speech and stuff, we have the right, like these authors have the right to like write these books, but also they shouldn't be writing pornographic books, especially targeted towards children.
Oh, by the way, my grandma wanted you to message her on Instagram a little rundown of everything going on with Tucker Carlson because I mentioned what stories we were talking about tonight. And I mentioned Calista was talking about Tucker Carlson, and she was like, "Oh, what happened?" I'm like, "I don't know. Calista's doing it." And she was like, "Oh, have her message me on Instagram a little explanation of the Tucker Carlson thing."
Okay,
Okay.
I will.
Finally, the White House celebrated Pride. All right, so this is an article from ABC, and it says that the White House denounces a handful of attendees at a Pride event who posed topless, saying it is simply unacceptable.
So the White House had a Pride event over
Mhm.
the weekend, as did many cities. I mean, Spokane had their Pride parade over the weekend, but um, what was I gonna say? So they invited all sorts of people to this event, and some of them decided that it was acceptable to pose without their shirts, most of these being trans activists, both male to female and female to male, uh, in front of the White House. I love
Mhm.
how this ABC article says that the White House denounces the attendees, considering there's literally pictures of Joe Biden with them.
Mhm. In
I
the
don't,
article, it says that the incident drew backlash as inappropriate, including from the conservative commentators like CJ Pearson, who suggested online that it brought shame on the country, which it did,
yeah,
and the absolutely horrendous press secretary, Corinne Jean Pierre, who, like, I have to be like, I feel like she's doing the best that she can with the worst administration of all time.
yeah.
You know, like I think of like Trump's press secretary, who was
Mhm.
like woke up every day like wanting to kill themselves because of things that Trump said. But with
Yeah.
she's just like not given a lot. But
Hmm.
they said that the behavior was simply unacceptable. We've been very clear about that. She also says it was unfair to the hundreds of attendees who were there to celebrate their families. So, we're going to continue to be clear on that. It's not appropriate. It's disrespectful. And it really does not reflect the event that we hosted to celebrate the LGBTQ plus families. And she says that this has not occurred before. This was not a normal thing that has happened under this administration, but we've been very clear about how we saw this particular behavior. But clearly they haven't, because how opposed has this been administration to drag bans, to kid drag bans?
Exactly. The other thing, like, they hung 3 flags on the White House. They did 2 American flags to the side and the pride flag in the middle. And I'm like, that is like frustrating because I'm like, you basically put the pride flag in the middle, stating that it's above the other flags, which were the United States flags. They're like, here, let me put 2 flags, 2 US flags too, so it's okay.
Rose Montoya, a transgender model and activist, posted a 1-minute video on TikTok showing different aspects of. Okay, let me say, you can tell this article was written by someone who's older because they said a 1-minute video on TikTok. It's like saying she posted a picture on Be Real.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, that made me laugh. Okay. Rose Montoya, a transgender model and activist, posted a 1-minute video to TikTok showing different aspects of the event. At one point, Montoya can be seen meeting President Joe Biden and First Lady Jill Biden. At another point, the video shows Montoya and other individuals bearing their chests while posing in front of the White House South portico. Montoya is seen covering her bare chest with her hands, and someone in the video says, "Are we topless at the White House?" Um, and then she responded to the video saying that my trans masculine friends were showing off their top surgery scars and living in joy, and I wanted to join them, she said in the video. And it's because it is perfectly within the law in Washington, D.C. I decided to join them and cover my nipples just to play it safe.
I I don't care if it's within the law. I don't feel like you should be doing this on the White House lawn.
Also,
I
if
feel
there's
like
there, that's if we skip there, then I think that is almost technically against the law, because um that's displaying nudity in front of kids, right? And that's illegal.
mm,
I don't know. I watch a lot of Law and Order SVU.
yeah, it's just like I don't know.
I'm seeing if I can find her TikTok right now.
Oh, much like Dylan Mulvaney videos, I've had the pleasure of seeing it about 182 times.
Rosa Montoya looks like a man.
Mhm.
Who she deleted her comments.
Well, probably.
Oh, she definitely deleted her comments. Okay. This video only has 1,000 comments on it, and it has over 100,000 views.
Yeah.
Oh, she speaks like a man too. Okay. Like, you're not anything for yourself. You literally sound like a man. She deleted her comments. That's so funny.
She's like, "Yeah, I actually can't handle the backlash."
I'm not surprised.
Exactly.
Krista, do you have any more thoughts on this?
Uh, no. I don't know. Has there been pride events at the White House and during other years? Just out of curiosity.
I remember. I feel like I don't remember. All right, are we ready for our main topic of the?
Yes.
I'm so excited for this, first of all. So this week we are talking about kind of our personal rights, and we're specifically focusing on the Bill of Rights. And we were originally going to talk about the issues in our justice system, but we're like, we are trying to boil down very, very heavy topics to like little 10-minute things. So we kind of wanted to focus on like I don't know, our OG rights, our Constitution, because, you know, a lot of people did not take government in high school. And it's very common nowadays. A lot of people just don't know what rights we have. So basically, to give you a brief little history, before the Constitution, we had the Articles of Confederation. And the Articles of Confederation, did not work. They had I'm so sorry. I'm doing this all off of what I remember, so I'm really gonna push through. The Articles of Confederation didn't work because they made it essentially impossible to legislate,
Mm-hmm.
and there was a lot of issues in it, like it almost gave too much power to the people, and there were people that almost gave too much power to the people. They couldn't legislate, they couldn't do taxes. It was all insane. So we needed to completely rewrite this. And so there was the Federalists and the Anti-Federalists. And if you were an avid watcher, if you're an avid fan of the musical Hamilton, you would know this because Hamilton was famously a Federalist. And so Alexander Hamilton, James Madison, and John Locke. So Alexander Hamilton, James Madison, and John Locke, and they wrote the Federalist Papers. And so John Locke was the one who kind of argued that there were divine rights that we had, and they were natural rights that could not be taken by the government and were made to protect the government. So it was the life to life, liberty, and property, and that basically that those who fail to protect those rights should be removed from power, which is kind of what the Second Amendment is about.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. So when they were trying to rewrite the Constitution, the Anti-Federalists were worried that there would be too much power given to the government. And so there's too much power given to the government with what they're writing into the Constitution. So the Federalists came up with the Bill of Rights to appease the Anti-Federalists. And so the Bill of Rights is the first 10 amendments. So we're just going to go through each of the amendment. We kind of split them in half, go through each of the amendment, explain, do kind of a more in-depth thing of what the amendment actually says, what this means, and some of the famous cases that have gone along with it. If you took AP Gov, you probably know some of these cases, but we'll start off with the First Amendment. So the First Amendment is kind of under the realm of freedom of expression. However, we are not technically granted freedom of expression, which is what a lot of people believe. So the First Amendment says that Congress shall make no laws respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press or the right to peacefully assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievances. So basically, it protects your rights to freedom of speech, but nowhere does it specifically say that we are granted the freedom of expression, which is something that a lot of people don't understand, especially the LGBTQ. There's two, so the First Amendment has two clauses. Is the Establishment Clause, which is where it prohibits the government from making any law that's respecting an establishment of religion. So this basically says that you can't it says that which it forbids the government from establishing an official religion, but also prohibits the government that from actions that favor one religion over another, and it also prohibits the government from unduly preferring religion over non-religion or non-religion over religion. There's a case in New York that I can't remember the name of, and they required their students to say a prayer at the beginning of the day in a public school, I believe. They had to say a prayer at the beginning of the day. And it was challenged in court because they're saying it was unconstitutional under the Establishment Clause because it was favoring, even if it was voluntary, it was favoring a religion in an establishment. So I know I explained that really badly, but I'm just kind of going off the top of my head with that one. And then the other clause that we're talking about is the Free Exercise Clause. And the Free Exercise Clause reserves the right of American citizens to accept any religious belief and engage in religious rituals. So it protected religious opinion, expression of opinion, and practice. It also, but it doesn't. It it not only protects religious beliefs, but it sometimes allows for the violation of laws as long as it is for religious reasons. Which I actually did not know that looking into this. But I didn't look. There's so many cases regarding the First Amendment, obviously, that I didn't really look into anything specific about it. But I wonder. But I guess you could kind of consider that. So one of the most famous cases is Tinker v. Des Moines, which is 1969, and it upheld the ruling that freedom of speech is allowed in schools unless it can be proven that's interfering with learning. So Tinker v. Des Moines took place during the Vietnam War, and students were suspended for wearing black armbands in protest of war. And so they said that these armbands weren't a sign of they weren't to suspend these students on the grounds of that is a violation of their freedom of speech because they were not necessarily causing harm. Now, if you're saying I hate Joe Biden and then you go around the school like I don't know, throwing I don't know, firecrackers, that is they can say that you can't do that. Like it's not violating your freedom of speech for them to kick you out for that. And then Texas v. Johnson, which is 1989, says that the desecration/burning of the American flag is a form of protected speech under the First Amendment, which I know got argued a little bit back when Trump was elected because people were burning the American flag and everyone was like, this is illegal. Is constitutional. No, it is constitutional to burn the American flag because it is a form of protected speech. It is not necessarily inciting violence. And it's not necessarily inciting violence. And even though it's like destructive to a flag, I mean, like, I know you're not really hurting anyone by burning a flag. So, one of the most recent cases that people most likely know is the Masterpiece Cake Shop versus the Colorado Civil Rights Commission, which is like, I don't know, I feel like I remember them being Muslim, but I think it's technically Christian cake shop.
Yeah.
So, in July 2012, Charlie Craig and David Mullins went to a Masterpiece Cake Shop in Lakewood, Colorado, and requested that his owner, Jack C. Phillips, design and create a cake for their wedding. Phillips declined to do so on the grounds that he does not create wedding cakes for same-sex weddings because of religious beliefs. Phillips believes that decorating cakes is a form of art through which he can honor God and that it would displease God to create cakes for same-sex marriage. So Craig and Mullins filed charges of discrimination with the Colorado Civil Rights Division, alleging discrimination based on sexual orientation under the Colorado Anti-Discrimination Act. After the division issued a notice of determination finding probable cause, Craig and Mullins filed a formal complaint with the Office of Administrative Courts alleging that Masterpiece discriminated against them in a place of public accommodation in violation of CADA. So, the administrative law judge issued a written order finding in favor of Craig Mullins, which was affirmed by the Colorado Civil Rights Commission on appeal. The Colorado Court of Appeals subsequently affirmed the commission's ruling. So both the Colorado Court of Appeals and that the court before that decided that yes, he does have to make the cake because it's discriminating against them. So, when this was taken to the Supreme Court, they asked, does the application of Colorado's public accommodations law to compel a cake maker to design and make a cake that violates his sincerely held religious beliefs about same-sex marriage violate the free speech or free exercise clauses of the First Amendment? And so the court ruled that the commission's actions so the Supreme Court ruled that the commission's actions violated the state's duty under the First Amendment not to use hostility towards religion or religious viewpoint as a basis for laws or regulations. Under the facts of this case, the court determined that Phillips' religious justification for his refusal to serve Craig and Mullins was not afforded the neutral treatment mandated by the Free Exercise Clause. So, basically what they're saying is that like Craig and Phillips were kind of saying that under the Establishment Clause, they were being violated because it was religious. It was preferring religious over non-religious views. But the Supreme Court found that actually under the Free Exercise Clause, it did not remain neutral and it did not it was not remain neutral and did not allow for the expression of religious opinions. And that is all I have for the First Amendment. Let's do you have any questions?
No, I do not.
It's pretty simple. I mean, most people understand how that works.
Yeah. So the Second Amendment, which is the right to bear arms. We hear in the news about the Second Amendment all the time in today's society, but do people know what the purpose of the Second Amendment is or what it says? I definitely don't think so. People have no clue what it actually says.
Mm-hmm.
They're very much like, this is what I think it says, but I've never actually read it. But they can't even define what the actual guns are, but it's fine. Anyways, the Second Amendment says a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state and the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Sometimes I think the government forgets what the United States Constitution says, considering some of the laws that they've tried passing around gun control. But this amendment is very important. So now that we know what the amendment is, let's move into a case regarding this amendment. So McDonald, my paper auto-corrected it to McDonald's. This is not McDonald's where you go get your chicken nuggets.
I want chicken nuggets.
That a person named McDonald, well, his last name's McDonald, versus Chicago was a case from 2010. The issue was, may a state or local government ban possession of handguns in light of the Second Amendment's right to keep and bear arms? This was similar to a case back in 2008, which was Heller versus District of Columbia, which found DC gun control laws to be a violation to the Second Amendment. McDonald was arguing that Chicago's gun control laws were similar to those in the Heller versus District of Columbia case. After Heller, it was stated the federal government cannot prohibit the possession of handguns in the home. From this, the question of whether the same restrictions apply to state government or just federal government. McDonald argued that the right to bear arms is a fundamental right that the state should not be able to infringe. I believe fundamental right is the pro-abortion's favorite phrase, but that's just a side note. They really say fundamental right. Chicago argued that states should be able to tailor firearm regulations to local conditions, which means the state should have the right to implement gun control despite what the Constitution says. So McDonald argued against this. In 2010, Chicago law achieved a virtual ban on handguns by prohibiting the possession of unregistered firearms. Chicago also put laws in place to prohibit the registration of most handguns. So essentially, they made you, the people, a criminal no matter what. So they said, you can't have an unregistered gun, but you also can't register your gun. In the lawsuit, McDonald argued that the Second Amendment right to keep and bear arms should apply to states through either the due process or the privilege and immunities clause of the 14th Amendment. The United States Court of Appeals of the Seventh Circuit, along with the District Court, both dismissed the case. But the case made it to the Supreme Court, in which the Supreme Court ruled in a 5-4 favor of McDonald. And that's everything. Do you have any questions?
I don't know if you told me this or if you were explaining something to me and I was really confused. Citizens can't have handguns?
Apparently not in Chicago.
What was the kind of gun that you said that citizens
Oh,
we can't have fully automatic, correct?
yeah, we can't have fully automatic. And then also, they just made a law where any pistol that has an arm guard is now, unless you take that arm guard off, you're now basically breaking a federal law.
What is an arm guard?
So it's basically, so a pistol is a handgun or a type of handgun. Some people have like an extension on it so that it's longer and more like a rifle.
Why not just buy a rifle?
I don't know,
Okay, I'm asking you. You're the gun one here.
but I don't know why. And then, so yeah, they banned those, and I don't even remember what the number was, but it's a very high number of the amount of people who have this type of gun. And so they basically made criminals out of like thousands of people in the United States.
So the Third Amendment, which this will be real fast because this technically, because of this, has never happened before. So the most forgotten amendment is the quartering of soldiers. So the Third Amendment states that no soldier shall in time of peace be quartered in any house without the consent of the owner, nor in the time of war, but in a manner to be prescribed by law. And so this has never been litigated before the U.S. Supreme Court. There has never been a U.S. Supreme Court case regarding this amendment. And you know why? Because what is there to argue?
Mm-hmm.
If at a time of peace, the government can't be like, here's some National Guard, put them in your house.
Yeah.
Although, like Navy pilots, I'm sure there's a lot of people that would be like, come stay in my house. Yeah, the explanation is the government can't force you to house soldiers. It's never been argued. It's never, but it came from. I know that it came from the English used to do that. They used to be like, "Yo,
Mm-hmm.
these soldiers, they're gonna come stay in your house, and you need to cook them food, and if you don't, we'll kill you."
Yeah, it was very much a big factor during the American Revolution.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So there you go. Third Amendment.
Okay, the Fourth Amendment, search and seizure. The Fourth Amendment is the right of the people to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effect against unreasonable searches and seizures shall not be violated, and no warrants shall issue, but upon probable case supported by oath of or affirmation, and particularly describing the place to be searched and the persons or things to be seized. That was really hard to read.
It's a hard one to understand.
Yeah. There's a lot of sentence structure in there that confused my brain. The first thing that comes to mind, like this is kind of a side note, is like all the pro-life activists like last year or the year before that were randomly getting their house searched by the FBI, which is a government ran agency. But yeah, that was the only thing I could think of while like doing this. I was like all of those people who randomly had their houses searched without any explanation.
Or I think of the Patriot Act
Mm,
was a lot of people, there's people that think the Patriot Act is unconstitutional under the Fourth Amendment.
Mm-hmm.
And then Roe v. Wade is argued under the Fourth Amendment. Yeah, it makes no sense. It does not in fact make
Okay.
sense.
I was like, am I like missing an important part?
No, I remember that. I remember being like, Roe v. Wade was argued under the Fourth Amendment, and then I like had a better understanding of how the Fourth Amendment works, and I was like, what? So Roe v. Wade was argued under the Fourth Amendment and the Ninth Amendment and a couple other ones that I can't remember, but I know it's specifically the Fourth and the Ninth, and it does not technically make any sense, which is
Okay,
why it is unconstitutional.
exactly. Uh, the ultimate goal of this amendment is to protect your rights to privacy and your freedom from unreasonable intrusion from the government, but it does not guarantee protection from all searches and seizures.
So the Fifth Amendment. Most people know the Fifth because most people think I plead the Fifth, Miranda warnings, but the Fifth Amendment says that no person shall be held to answer for a capital or otherwise infamous crime unless on a presentment of indictment of a grand jury, except in cases arising in the land or naval forces or in the militia, when in actual service in time of war or public danger, nor shall any person be subject for the same offense to be twice put in jeopardy of life or limb, nor shall be compelled in any criminal case to be a witness against himself, nor be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process of law, nor shall private property be taken for public use without just compensation. So, the Fifth Amendment can be broken down into 5 distinct constitutional rights: the right to indictment by the grand jury before any criminal charges or felonious crimes. So, that is a right to trial by jury. And then number 2 is a prohibition of double jeopardy. Number 3 is a right against forced self-incrimination. Number 4 is a guarantee that all criminal defendants have a fair and speedy trial. And number 5 is a guarantee that the government cannot seize private property without making a due compensation at the market value of the property. So that's what I was talking about with GCU. And GCU being like, if they needed to, if GCU was a public university and they took those houses, they would have to compensate them for the market value of their property.
Mm-hmm.
Like right now, we know that they're like trying to convince them for like $3 million, but they just can't convince them to sell. If it was, public property, if it was the public university and they were taking it, they'll be like, here's how much your house is. This is what we're giving you. Now get out.
Yeah.
Which kind of sucks, but technically it's constitutional. Double jeopardy prohibits anyone from being prosecuted twice for substantially the same crime. It was incorporated against the states in 1969 with the case Benton versus Maryland 395 US 7084. So, Calista, you, I don't know, murder someone.
Okay. That sounds very like me.
And then you go to jail. You murder someone.
Okay.
Someone, I don't know, said that all you eat is pesto, and you're like, I'm done with this running bit. I'm gonna kill you. So then you kill them. Then they're like, oh wait, Calista did not kill this person.
Mm.
So they let you out of jail. And then some new evidence comes to light, and they're like, oh wait, Calista did kill this person. They cannot convict you again of that crime because that is double jeopardy.
Mm.
But let's say you killed someone.
Yes.
Pesto. You killed someone. You killed him with a spoon. And then they send you to jail. And then they're like, oh wait, we think that she killed them. And I don't know, like stole all of their insurance money. Then they can charge you for stealing all their insurance money. And then that is technically a different crime. So that's not double jeopardy. That is charging you with another crime.
Mm.
There's a really good episode of Law and Order SVU on
Okay.
this.
Oh, a question.
Mm-hmm.
did you happen to have like a microphone on me all weekend? Because you just talked about 2 conversations that Amanda and I had.
Wait, really?
Not not the killing, but we talked about you always saying I have eat pesto even though I ate it one time. That was brought up like twice.
What?
And then
How?
we talked okay, and then we also talked about um if somebody died by a spoon. Like we had a conversation with our roommates. We're like, for some reason we got talking about gun rights, and then all of a sudden we switched to like because one of the girls knows a bunch of people in England, and she's like, yeah, they have people die by spoons like a lot, and like we had a conversation about killing with a spoon, and we're like, ha. So Amanda, I think it was, goes, so you die and you go up to God and you're like, yeah, so I died by a spoon. Like that's the most embarrassing way to die. Anyways, I really couldn't think about anything else besides the fact that we literally had these conversations and you're like explaining this like these conversations were had this weekend.
I was
Okay.
thinking the pesto thing because I was editing the podcast and it was when we were talking about pesto.
Mm.
And then the spoon thing, I think of the video of the guy. It's like one of the really old YouTube videos. It was like one of the first one to hit 1 million views of the
Uh-huh.
guy who just like you like dying from a slow death, and it's just this man who follows you around slowly trying to kill you by spoon. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking of.
I just
Okay,
really I really couldn't think of anything else.
that's funny. I'm a mind reader. I have magical powers.
Yeah.
We're good. So, self-incrimination um is the intentional or unintentional act of providing information that will suggest your involvement in a crime or exposure to criminal prosecution. Citizens have the right to the privilege against self-incrimination, which means that they can refuse to answer questions, make potentially incriminating statements, or testify at a trial in any criminal case. This privilege only protects individuals and it also protects testimonial evidence, and it usually applies in criminal procedure. So, the most famous case regarding crim- um, self-incrimination is Miranda v. Arizona. So, Miranda v. Arizona, which was decided in 1966, um, on March  13th, 1963, Ernesto Miranda was arrested in his house and brought to the police station where he was questioned by police officers in connection with a kidnapping and rape. After 2 hours of interrogation, the police obtained a written confession from Miranda. The written confession was admitted into evidence at trial despite the objection of the defense attorney and the fact that the police officers admitted that they had not advised Miranda of his right to have an attorney present during the interrogation. The jury found Miranda guilty. On appeal, the Supreme Court of Arizona affirmed and held that Miranda's constitutional rights were not violated because he does not specifically request counsel. So when this was put before the U.S. Supreme Court, the question was, does the Fifth Amendment's protection against self-incrimination extend to the police interrogation of a suspect? And they said, yes, the Fifth Amendment requires that the law enforcement officially advise suspects of their right to remain silent and to obtain an attorney during interrogations while in custody. So that's where we have the Miranda warning. So the Miranda warning is you have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can be used against you in court. You have the right to an attorney, and if you cannot afford one will be appointed to you. So, Calista,
Yes.
you just got done murdering someone with a spoon
Okay.
regarding pesto. And then
Okay.
the police come, and they're like, you are under arrest for murdering a person with a spoon. We think that you murdered a person with a spoon. They come to your house, I don't know, they put you in handcuffs, they take you down to the station, and they put you in a room, and they yell at you, and they say, they have like, played like good cop, bad cop, like they gave you a bowl of pesto. And so,
On
like,
it, but
They like play like good cop, bad cop, and finally you're like, fine, I guess I murdered someone with a spoon. I guess. Like, I did it. Like, yes, I murdered someone with a spoon. You write down your confession and stuff. You go to court. You finally get your attorney on the phone. Your defense attorney is like, you said what? To them? Why would you say that? Why did you not call me? And you're like, well, I didn't know I could call you. And so technically, your entire case could be thrown out because you were not read your Miranda rights because you did not know that what you were saying was self-incriminating.
Uh-huh.
And you did not know that you had an attorney.
Yeah.
So they could throw it out because they violated your constitutional rights. That's basically what it's saying. So police officers, read your Miranda warnings. Also, most people don't know. You do not need to speak to these, like, you don't say anything. That's what they say. Whenever you see a TV show, the defense attorney walks in and they say, stop talking, it's for a reason.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Questions, comments, concerns?
No, I'm just concerned the fact that you knew our conversations. Really threw me for a loop. I honestly think I might have tuned out all the other details. The fact that you literally were talking about pesto and food. The Sixth Amendment describes the right to which someone accused of a crime is entitled. I don't know where I was going with that.
You're accused of a crime, you better check your attitude at the door. Because Callista's having none of it.
I actually don't know where I was going with that sentence.
You probably were saying entitled to a trial by jury.
What?
You probably were saying entitled to a trial by jury.
Yeah, that's what. Okay. The Sixth Amendment describes the rights to which someone accused of a crime is entitled to a jury. Sixth Amendment states the jury should be impartial. The person accused of the crime must be informed of the natures of the charges against them and the identity of who is pressing the charges against them. Furthermore, the accused must be able to bring witness to speak in his favor. The Sixth Amendment protects the right of the accused person and the states that they must be able to defend themselves properly.
Cool. So would you like to just explain the Sixth Amendment with the pesto example?
I don't know how.
Okay. So, Calista,
Yes.
there's two ways this could go. You've been arrested.
Okay.
You killed this dude with a spoon.
Mm-hmm.
It might have been a woman. Do you want to kill a guy or a girl?
I mean,
Non-binary. You killed a non-binary person.
No, as a girl, if I kill a guy with a spoon, it's more impressive than if I kill a girl with a spoon.
You killed Dylan Mulvaney.
Okay.
You were out and Dylan Mulvaney for some reason was near you, and you lost it. You said, I am so sick and tired of seeing you on my For You page. You lost it. You killed Dylan Mulvaney with a spoon.
Dylan Mulvaney dyed his hair blonde.
How do you know this?
Because actually, Abby's in the bathroom like, what? Because it came up on my phone the other day, and I literally show Amanda, and she goes, what the?
Okay, I need to look this up.
Abby just goes, oh my gosh, he's hideous.
Okay. Ugh, okay.
Also, looks like an old lady in that video.
Prisoners. He defends death row prisoners. One of the people in the book that he defends, one of the issues was that he did not get a trial by a jury of his peers because he was a Black man who was on trial, and then every single one of his jurors was white.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was one of the issues. There's a whole bunch of other issues in that case, but it's a really, really good book, by the way. It was the book that actually ended up making me anti-death row, which surprised me. But I was like, I came out of it very, very, it's very depressing, but it's very good.
Yeah.
And so you are entitled, so your I don't know, your jury is made up of people in the neighborhood, but obviously you can't have like your grandma can't be on like it because she's the thing. Like my mom was summoned to jury duty, but she was dismissed because the lawyer lived in our neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
So stuff like that. And then you have the right to witnesses. So they could pull me and I could be like, no, yeah, totally. She totally would have killed this dude. I can't lie, Calista.
I know you can't lie. And considering,
I don't know why they would pull me because they knew I would definitely say it.
yeah, also considering conversations we had, considering the one night when I was researching about Dylan Mulvaney for our episode, you would be like, yeah, she definitely.
Mm-hmm. I mean, 100%. I'm sure I can show you her closet.
What's in my closet? Just a bunch of spoons and pesto?
Worse, a spark.
But
I hope,
that wasn't the murder weapon. That was in case it didn't work.
I hope you never killed Dylan Mulvaney because this will definitely be used as evidence against you. Like you're 100% being indicted. Like,
Yeah. I don't have any plans of killing Dylan Mulvaney. I don't have any plans of killing anyone.
Yeah. Sorry, that like fell apart. We got distracted by Dylan Mulvaney.
Big conversations. I really think you were recording our conversations this weekend.
So, the Seventh Amendment that says in suits at common law where the value controversy shall exceed $20, the right of trial by jury shall be preserved, and no fact tried by a big jury shall be otherwise re-examined in any court of the U.S. than according to the rules of the common law. We share an apartment.
Okay.
And you have a pesto themed party and
Okay.
damage $25 worth of my stuff. I would sue you for damages, and it is constitutionally protected under the Seventh Amendment that I have the right in a trial by jury in a federal court to sue you over damaging $25 worth of stuff with pesto.
Okay.
Yeah.
It seems
So,
like it's very unnecessary to go through all that work for $25.
it costs way more than $25 to sue you.
Exactly. But I guess
But
if you think about it, the Constitution was written a long time ago. I don't know when this was the
I
Seventh
don't know if this
Amendment,
is
one of the
adjusted.
original ones.
I really don't know if this is adjusted for inflation because Constitution was written to be a living, breathing document, which is why we have amendments, which is why we change the Constitution. Like we don't change it, but we add amendments to the Constitution. So like that's why in the Constitution it was originally said that there was the prohibition of alcohol, and that was overturned, and how the like 3/4 amendment, like the Black people were like 3/4 of a vote, and that was amended. Like it was meant to change and be able to live and breathe with the change of our country. And that's one of the really cool things about the Constitution and why it's such a unique document. However, you get things like a lawsuit should be more than $20, which I do not know if it was adjusted for inflation. I want to know.
Like, I feel like $20 would be a lot back then. So, like, it seems like so little now, but $20 was
$20
a
was
large
a lot.
number.
$20 was a lot in like Little House on the Prairie days.
Exactly. So, like, it clearly was not adjusted for inflation.
The exact wording of the Seventh Amendment does not generate much debate, not even the $20 clause. The amount has never been changed to account for inflation, which would put me out for over $500 today. So I could sue you for damaging $25 worth of stuff in a federal.
Okay.
And if they refused, it would be a violation of the Seventh Amendment. I could sue the state. Because this is like, I have some people I need to sue now. Okay.
I can't pay the legal fees, but
Mhm. Yeah, I had something that popped into my head and then popped right back out. So on to you.
okay. So,
This is my favorite amendment.
what?
This is my favorite amendment.
Favorite amendment. Okay. I don't know why I got concerned by you saying this is your favorite amendment. The Eighth Amendment is cruel and unnecessary punishment. The Eighth Amendment states excessive bail shall not be required, nor excessive fines imposed, nor cruel and unusual punishments inflicted. In the Eighth Amendment, it is stated that the fine should not be excessive, as well as the bail should not be extremely high. The Eighth Amendment prohibits the federal government from giving very harsh penalties on criminal defendants, which brings up what is considered to be cruel and unusual punishment. These punishments deemed as cruel and unusual can be anything brutal and barbaric, or any excessive time. Torture chambers you read about in books would be considered a cruel and unusual punishment. Just throwing that out there in case anyone had any questions about that. So, Brett Jones was a 15-year-old, stabbed his grandfather to death. He was convicted of murder, and the Circuit Court of Lee County, Mississippi, imposed a mandatory sentence of life imprisonment, and Mississippi law made him ineligible for parole. So the question was, does the Eighth Amendment require a sentencing authority to find that a juvenile is permanently incorrigible before it may impose a sentence of life without possibility of parole? So the conclusion was a sentencing authority need not find a juvenile is permanently incorrigible before imposing a sentence of life without the possibility of parole. Sentencing system is both constitutionally necessary and constitutionally sufficient to impose a sentence of life without parole on a defendant who committed a homicide when they were under 18. And this was voted 6-3 majority. So yes, that's everything on that. Do you have thoughts? Okay.
The Eighth Amendment is known as the Death Row Amendment. And so there's a lot of really interesting things about that. Most states do no longer have death row. And you want to know something interesting, Calista? You can go and you can look up who's on death row, and you can look up the schedule and what they did and everything about that, and you can donate.
Oh,
You can donate to death row. Yeah. So if you wanted to, you could go up and look up and see who's being executed tomorrow. And the thing is that is interesting about death row is that you also can see how long that they keep pushing it out. So think like Jeffrey Dahmer, Ted Bundy, all these famous serial killers who were going to be executed, and they kept getting pushed and pushed and pushed and pushed and pushed. That is for a lot of death row. People who are on death row. And that is one of the reasons people are against it. And one of the reasons I'm against death row is because even though they did something that was obviously terrible, it is kind of inhumane. It is, I believe it's very inhumane. The idea that this person is preparing for death, they are ready, they're like accepted that like tomorrow they are having their life ended, and then it gets pushed another year. And it happens to death row over and over and over and over again.
Mm-hmm.
Like there are people who have been on death row for like 10 plus years, which is absolutely ridiculous. Also an interesting thing about that, Brian Stevenson once again actually argued and won across in front of the Supreme Court and established a precedent that that someone who is mentally disabled cannot actually be put on death row, and or if someone does not understand to the extent what their crimes are or what their charges is, they can't be put on death row. So, like someone who is, I guess, someone who is on like the spectrum, like I guess,
Yeah.
far enough onto the spectrum that they didn't really understand the what they did, then they can't be put on death row.
Interesting.
Yeah, there is a lot of very interesting cases regarding this. In Oregon, the only thing that you can be put on death row is for aggravated rape or aggravated murder, which is like it's rape but with very, very, very violent. I believe that it changed recently to only aggravated murder, but I might be wrong. So there was a set of twin boys. I know they were a set of brothers who we looked into a case where a set of brothers committed aggravated murder against their grandparents, and there was a case regarding whether they were actually being held in front of the Oregon Supreme Court, whether they actually were going to be put on death row. So there, Mississippi and some of the southern states are, they, as you would expect, are more towards death row, but most states do not allow minors to be put on death row.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of states that now do not allow minors to be put in life without parole. That's something that is changing right now. There's a lot of states who have changed it so that minors can get parole.
Yeah.
Which, like, I understand, like, a 15-year-old killing their grandparent is awful, but I don't know, like 15 years down the line, you don't want to like reevaluate that and get them some help instead.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I think like my biggest thing, I don't really know my opinions on death row, but like people are always like, oh yeah, their time in jail might change them. But I feel like if you're like a child, anything to do with like sexual activities with children and things like that, you're not going to change. Like that is your mental,
Mm-hmm.
that's all you can think of. Like those things, I don't feel like you can change from that.
Yeah. I guess we hope that God can always change someone's heart, even in moments before they die. Like they can
Yeah.
repent stuff, which is, it's hard. Like it's not, it is not natural for us as humans to be like, I hope that this child rapist gets to go to heaven.
Oh,
But like I guess that's kind of how he wants us to think, and like that's sometimes how I think of it. Like it's very hard. But I death row is something, like being anti-death row is something that I've gotten a lot more into, especially after reading the book and doing a lot more research on it. It's something that I've gotten more into and something I care deeply about. And I also like, so I don't know. I would love to do an entire episode on death row, which I know sounds so like morbid, but it is very interesting. It is very interesting. I feel like a lot of people I feel like it's something that people don't think about, or
mhm.
people just don't have opinions on, which was fair.
Okay. Is that everything on the 9th? Or were you continuing? Okay. The 10th Amendment is, I lost my spot. Okay. The 10th Amendment is power to the states. The 10th Amendment states the powers not delegated to the United States by the Constitution nor prohibited by it to the states are reserved to the states, respectively, or to the people. The 10th Amendment is the most straightforward out of all the amendments in the Bill of Rights. The 10th Amendment concerns the relationship between the state and the federal government's power. This amendment says that any powers that aren't mentioned in the Constitution as belonging to the government belongs to the states themselves, or the federal government. This limits the power of the federal government. An example of this would be, not Roe v. Wade, but Dobbs versus Jackson, when it was given back to the states, because nowhere in the Constitution, nowhere is abortion a constitutional right. Even though they argue it in the Fourth Amendment.
It's an odd thing. They argue it under the 4th and the 9th and the 10th. Not the 10th, the 14th. The 14th is the one they argue it under.
Don't know how it can be argued under the 4th. Still haven't figured that one out.
I asked my government teacher, and she literally goes, like, she just threw up her hand. She's like, I don't really know. I was like, thank you. This is an institution of learning.
Oh, it's going to be 1 year. Not this Saturday, but next Saturday, since Roe v. Wade was overturned.
Yeah, that's.
No.
I'll be in. We're doing. That's supposed to be in DC.
Yeah.
We're doing the rally in front of the Lincoln Memorial.
Mm-hmm.
I'm so excited. Okay. Okay. Maybe this is for me because I'm a little shorty. Do you have a thing where, like, if things are, like, really big, it, like, your head doesn't work? Like, I have it, like, when I get around, like, really big things, like, I don't like it. Like, if I was ever on the Statue of Liberty, like, I just don't think I would feel, like, comfortable, like, I would wanna crawl out of my own skin. I'm worried about that for the Lincoln Memorial.
I think that's just you being odd.
It's not me being odd. I feel like this is a thing.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know about that.
Okay, I feel like it's a thing because okay, the thing that people are afraid of really big things. It's a phobia.
Uh-huh.
It's called megalophobia, and it's a type of anxiety disorder in which a person experiences an intense fear of large objects. It's not intense, but it is okay. Like the statue of Jesus in Rio.
Uh-huh.
No, absolutely not. No, like
Okay.
I no. Or like whales freak me out.
But the ocean also freaks you out in general.
I don't like the ocean. Well, the ocean's so big and there's so much. Like, what if I just swim down and there's a squid?
I mean, I've almost stepped on a jellyfish and almost been pinched by a crab.
I don't like not knowing. Like, I don't like walking on the sand. Like, I don't like not knowing how many creatures are underneath there.
You do realize that there's creatures in the dirt and under the road and everywhere?
That's different. I have a general idea of what's underneath the road.
Okay.
I killed a skunk today.
Do you realize you killed a skunk today? do you realize how many like microorganisms are everywhere?
I don't care. Microorganisms mind their own business. I can't see them. They're microorganisms. I'm probably covered in them right now.
Yeah, very likely.
But the idea that you can go into the ocean and you just don't know, absolutely not. No. You know how many scary things are in the ocean, Calista?
A lot.
Mm-hmm. 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 there's a lake, there's a man-made lake by my house. And one summer they found a dead body in there, and I did not swim in that lake the rest of the summer. I don't. One of my friends wants an ocean wedding, and I said I will wait in the car, but I will not be in your. I will be in your wedding, but I'll wait in the car. Okay.
Okay. We digressed.
We did. That was that everything that you had for the 10th Amendment?
Yes.
All right. Concluding thoughts?
I am a little offended that you have accused me of murder during this podcast, as well as previously claimed I had an abortion. So I'm a little offended that you used me all the time.
Did I? You're the person in front of me when I come up with these metaphors.
Oh no, I still you've actually accused me of murdering twice now, because you've accused me of murdering my child, and now you've accused me of murdering Dylan Mulvaney.
You called me a man in our first episode. I at least had waited like 5 episodes in to use you as an example, but you called me a man.
It's 3. The 3rd episode was our abortion episode.
Okay.
Okay, that's all.
Did you learn anything new?
Yes.
Okay. I enjoyed this, but
It was really fun.
This is my major, so.
Yeah, I was like, yours were a lot more in-depth than mine.
The government major came out in May. Okay,
Yeah.
it's close to. I took the AP Government and Politics test, and I did like one of our units is just the Bill of Rights. So
Uh-huh.
I've done so much on the Bill of Rights. Like I
Yeah.
know these court case. I used to know all these court cases like the back of my own hand.
Uh-huh.
But it's also what I want to do. Like I want to be a constitutional lawyer, and I think this stuff is really interesting. And
Yeah.
I would love to do some of the other amendments sometime. I'd love to do a deep dive on the 14th Amendment.
Mm-hmm.
I also had an idea of there is a guy that we should do a deep dive on sometime who did some really interesting stuff, and I can't remember his name right now because it's like 1 a.m. It's 1:25 a.m.
Yeah.
But I enjoyed this very much.
Mm-hmm.
And the government major and me really got to have some fun. Let's talk about our pop culture for this week, which is kind of pop culture a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
To find these articles. So, as you know, Calista was at Young Women's Leadership Summit this weekend, and some articles came out regarding Young Women's Leadership Conference. And they're pretty funny.
Yeah. So I'm not the only one that went. There's some leftist media who also, I was gonna say, enjoyed the event, but they did not enjoy the event.
The
They
fact
didn't enjoy the conference.
I would like to say that we need to get to enough that we can apply to be people who go and review this, but the entire thing would be like, doesn't this girl hate Candace Owens? Like, they would be like, absolutely not.
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't hate her. I just disagree on like almost every single thing she says.
So
Okay.
actually, according to this one article, Allison's actually lucky that she didn't go.
I am lucky that I didn't go.
It says, count yourself lucky to have missed Turning Point USA's Young Women's Leadership Summit, which took place this past weekend, June 9th through 11th, 2023, in Dallas, Texas. They forgot a comma between Dallas and Texas.
They also said, because you know how you talked about how you could have a career as a career and children?
Uh-huh.
In this article, they said that Republican conference tells young women to give up their dreams and their birth control.
That's, yeah, because they really focused on Alex Clark's speech, which hers was the first one
Mm-hmm.
of the night. And that's like her whole thing is, and she wasn't telling you to give up your career. She just said, she was like talking about how like in the 70s or 50s or 70s, something like that, like birth control, 50s, I believe. Birth control was created to be a convenience for moms so that they could, or women, so they could go and have their careers. But so was like daycares and like these moments when your child is little are the moments when their brain's the most flexible and growing. So whatever they're teaching at daycare, you don't have a say in it. And they also need their mom's love and affection.
Mm.
Let's see some more about these articles. Oh, I like the one about Riley Gaines in this one article because it goes, Riley Gaines going on a transphobic rant with the audience cheering about NCAA swimmer Leah Thomas. At least Riley uses real name or uses Leah's real name, unlike TPUSA, whose tweet uses Leah's dead name, which Riley Gaines went between using Leah and Will. She went back and forth.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I was just like, you really were like, they were all, this person was also offended that Carrie Lake said, we're not gender confused. Because we all knew we were women in that room because, well, we were all at the women's conference and it was, in fact, all women. There was 2,700 of us. It was their largest conference of Young Women's Leadership Summit.
Okay. Explain this to me because I'm sure you heard this. It says an exchange between an audience member and Charlie Kirk really exemplifies the entire weekend. She tells him she's a student who dreams of being a surgeon and isn't interested in marriage. And the Kirk says you're going to have to choose which one matters more.
I was not there for that speech.
Really? You said Charlie Kirk? No, thank you.
No, I was there for his first one, the first night, but we were getting lunch or no, what were we doing?
Okay.
We were doing meet and greets or something.
That's
We're
fair.
walking around.
That's fair. I mean, Charlie Kirk, you've heard him speak like 4 times already this year.
Yeah. Because there was a bunch of sponsored people and then it went to him and yeah, we just happened to not be there. So I am unaware of that.
Okay. Here's my thing. And I kind of understand this.
Uh-huh.
And maybe just because I was not there and the articles are giving me a little bias. I can kind of see where they're saying that some of these women sound like hypocrites when they say that you should be a stay-at-home wife and then all of them make millions of dollars a year.
Yeah,
Like, I
true.
can see where they're saying that. Like,
But
yeah. But that's not what they're saying. Like, that's not
yeah.
what they're saying. But it's surface level. If you do not look deeper into what they are actually saying, it can kind of come across.
Yeah, and I was like the Congress women, like Lauren Boebert and MTG, both they weren't necessarily saying be stay-at-home mothers, but they did say being mothers are great.
Mm-hmm.
So like those ones weren't saying the ones like Alex Clark said be a stay-at-home mom. I think Allie E. Stuckey said talked about being a mom and staying at home. But like Carrie Lake talked about having a career and being a mother. So like these bigger ones were talking about how you can have a career and be a mother.
Mm-hmm.
And like, yeah. Allie Beth Stuckey opened day 2 of the conference. She unsurprisingly stuck a notable, more pointed Christian extremist tone. She
I
said,
love
because she was talking about like your highest calling being glorifying God. Like
Yes.
no
That's
matter what, no matter what you like are doing, or whether your calling's being a mother or having a career. She was talking about how like literally no matter what your path is or what you feel called to, your highest calling is glorifying God. And yeah, so apparently that's a Christian extremist view.
okay. Let me list those other articles. Lauren Ingram looks. Never mind.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree with Allie Beth's point on it's your highest calling is it's not have a career, it's not even to be a wife, mom, as wonderful things as those are, your highest calling is to glorify God. That's a really good point.
Exactly. That was like what she did her whole speech around, was like that. And I was like, oh,
Mm-hmm.
even though she's very anti-Catholic, I was like, okay, I can agree with that.
Okay. I know you weren't there, so it's hard for you to give your opinion on this. I do think that it is kind of misogynistic to say that a 35-year-old woman who's now like a successful orthopedic surgeon has run out of chances to find a man.
Yeah.
Like I don't think you would say I don't think that you would say a 35-year-old man is too old to find a woman. Like I do think
Exactly.
that is not just a conservative thing. That is a thing also that is said on the left. It is something that is truly an issue of misogyny in our culture right
Mhm.
now.
One more thing. This person's really offended that Candace Owens said you should strive to be more like your grandmother. Because she
Yeah.
was referring to like raising kids and cooking and all that, and like we've like forgotten some of these like skills. And yeah, she's real offended. Or he, I don't know. I'm guessing it's a girl.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's a girl.
Yeah. I mean, I guess I can see that, and I can also see, but like, okay, but Candace Owens does a show like 5 days a week. Like,
Well, their biggest thing was like she's talking about gardening. Like, how dare her talk about gardening?
that's ridiculous. Like, okay, she brought up gardening, an activity she doesn't do. I don't know if I brought up knitting, an activity I don't do. Is that making me a
No, but
hypocrite?
she does garden. She
But
literally gardens all the time.
also, let me tell you how much I know about Candace Owens. She doesn't like yoga pants.
I do. That's good.
She hates JoJo Siwa.
I agree with those points. Okay. Anyways,
You don't like yoga pants?
I don't like yoga pants. No,
So every time I
and
wear
not
yoga pants, you just look at me in disgust.
yeah.
Wait, really?
No, no.
Like Calista, I wear yoga pants 90% of the time. I hate wearing jeans.
No, I just hate yoga pants when it comes to wearing them.
Really?
Never. I don't even own a pair of yoga pants. Okay. Anyways, we can move on now to concluding this episode.
No, I had a final thought.
Oh, final thought.
Right now, I am living in ignorance is bliss life when it comes to birth control. And that was one of the factors that made me not want to go. I was like, I really don't want to sit and like get lectured about taking birth control
No.
for 3 days. But
The
only
only person who talked about it was Alex Clark, and then I think somebody else mentioned it like briefly, like one line, and then continued their speech about something else. But that was it. Like,
which is odd because that was part of the marketing for it.
well, because the big thing was they were doing it around Candace, or not Candace Owens, Alex Clark's opening speech.
Mm-hmm. So I don't know. I feel like I think that in the coming years it'll be interesting to see what other topics they could do surrounding women. I don't know.
surprised there wasn't. I actually never mind. I was gonna say I was surprised there wasn't more abortion, but I guess it was conservative group. Never mind.
Why would
I
it be like, what were the different, what would they be saying that not everyone else in the room was saying?
I don't
I
know.
think
I went
I
50
do think
a.m.
that
brain.
I do think they could do something like that where they're like, here's exactly what is happening, and like giving people more the tools. I don't know, but that's really
Yeah,
that's more
I
things for
mean,
laughing.
Alex
So
Clark. Alex Clark talked about abortion, and she talked about like the mental effects after you have an abortion, and like how you still grieve that child even years later, and sometimes that grieving hits you years later. It doesn't hit you right away.
okay. Well, thank you so much for listening to this week's episode of I Don't Want to Talk About Politics. Okay. Make sure you check us out on Instagram at IDWTap_podcast. Also, make sure to check out our personal Instagrams, which is at ally.joy173. And
Calista J 1776.
in the description, we have our email, links to send us a voice message, and a link to check out our references. Last episode, we had Mariah choose our poll, which was, do you think Biden should run again? I don't know why I'm confused. I just wrote that. Which I don't believe we have the results in yet, but I'm pretty sure it's going to be unanimous that he should definitely not be running again.
I'm pretty sure.
This week, instead of a poll, we simply have a question for you to answer. What kind of topics would you like us to cover? Calista, what are we talking about next week?
Next week, we're touching on a pretty controversial topic at the moment: TikTok parents and family vloggers. We'll be asking the question, what's the price of using your kids for content?
Calista, I'm committing to it. I'm going to read Jenna McCarthy's book.
Okay.
Which means I will buy the book. And I'm going to read Jenna McCarthy's book. And I also am going to finish the Shiny Happy People documentary.
Sounds good.
Which has made me feel like I'm losing brain cells, but I'll finish it.
Okay.
I'm excited for how this episode is going to go.
Uh-huh.
I think it will be fun.
Yes.
You listed in our Mother's Day episode. I can't remember if it was our Mother's Day or a deleted episode, but I think it's the Mother's Day episode that you hated TikTok parents.
I did.
And I think it'll be
that was the Mother's Day episode.
It was. I think it'll be interesting to kind of talk about some of the stuff surrounding it because it's a pretty controversial topic right now. Once again, thank you so much for listening. We'll see you next week.